Can anybody really run a business? I don't know. But I do know that there are 10 characteristics that I have either had to gain or hone that allow me to become a yes. So today I want to walk through my 10 anchors and what they mean to me. I knew that I wanted to start a business when I was 10, and the reason I knew was because it was the solution. When I was growing up, I was always asking my mom like why my uncle was always happy or why the neighbor was always smiling or had free time or whatever, and the explanation that I got was always business. So I always viewed business as the solution. It could have been this table, I would have been chasing tables the rest of my life. But I think that ambition really starts with wanting to solve a problem. Ambition is not meant to be like ego-based or boastful, any of that bullshit. It really just means that you have a problem that you're trying to solve. And if you don't have a problem that you're trying to solve, probably not gonna go very far. You're gonna find yourself in situations where you're thinking, I feel like I could represent myself better in this sense. And if that's the case, you're probably right, and you probably should. You need to get involved. Agency means that you don't accept other people's representation of you as enough. I was in business for maybe a couple of months at a job down in Fort Lauderdale. It was a Friday night. I used to, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would drive down there. I would work all day, and then I'd leave at 8 p.m. and I'd drive back, but at least I was in my own bed. And on a Friday night, I was working down in Fort Lauderdale, working on a hydraulic power unit. There was a hose hanging down inside the machine, and it was just saturated in fluid. So I knew that I wanted to hang it up with a zip tie. The manufacturer doesn't hang it up with a zip tie, so whatever I'm doing is above and beyond. I could have looked at it and said, well, the manufacturer just leaves it down in the oil. What do I care, right? It's not right, it's not wrong, but I'm worried about going home. So that night, I remember thinking to myself, like, I went to the trailer, I'm out of zip ties, it's gonna be a motherfucker for me to leave and get off the airport property, go to Home Depot, buy a $3 bag of zip ties, come back, do the shit right. So very early on in your business, you're gonna wanna establish where the line to honor is for you. What things are you willing to go the extra mile and say, I was not willing to leave it in exchange for additional profits? I could have left that night and I could have just said, fuck that zip tie, I'm going back to Lakeland, I wanna be in my bed. Discipline means that you have to do every other thing. If you really want to achieve your goal, the first thing you do is you say, these are the things I am not willing to do. Then you discipline your ass and you do every other task that's left on that list. And you do it at all costs. You don't do it until 5 o'clock. You don't do it until you're tired. You do it until it's done. The question I always ask myself about accountability is not, was it my fault? Was it even my responsibility? Maybe the answer to those is no. But the question I always ask myself is, if I got involved, would things have changed? Could I have improved the situation? But you take time out of your day and say, could I have made change? Accountability is really like how I do my day job. I make sure that I'm there for the people all day long. I would hate to go home at the end of the day thinking to myself, could I have gotten involved? I spend my entire day devoting resource to the teams to make sure that answer is always clean, and then I do my shit nights and weekends. A lot of people think that leadership begins with micromanaging, and I don't look at it that way. I do think that there is some truth to the concept that people respect what you inspect, so being a part of the business is really important, being present is really important, but what matters the most is that you broadcast your vision. You broadcast your mission. That's what this is about. I don't think that the President of the United States is in every little decision, pulling levers, micromanaging, but I do think that they're immediately responsible for setting the tone and the mood. And if you pay attention, you can see this even swing economies. So inside the business, it's really important that everybody understands what you're trying to do, and that oftentimes starts with, I have a dream. Then you fill in the rest. People understand what they're trying to do here. Leadership means being a part of their objectives during the day and making sure that they make it to the finish line so that the overall mission is achieved. Yeah, the definition of compassion is really just suffering with. And this doesn't just mean suffering, sometimes it's winning with. But the way that I look at compassion is you're gonna have people who are on projects and maybe they do every single thing that they should have. You water the plant, you give it everything it should have, but sometimes it just doesn't bear fruit. You need to be there with your people when that happens. You need to be there with your people when they're going through things in their personal lives. Don't forget, we're all humans. Everybody has a life outside of work that impacts their life in work. Understanding those things and sharing the wins and losses with your team is more than just being there with them. It's about how you express those moments in time. Yeah, probably the most terrifying point in my career was when I purchased ProServe Aviation. It was significantly larger than GSE America, so I was going in not only to a paper business where it was difficult to understand what was actually happening, but a business on a different magnitude. It was at a different level of finance that I had not yet achieved or understood, so that was terrifying for me. It was on the other side of the country. There was definitely a lot at stake with that business, but I just remembered that courage is not the absence of fear. It's proceeding anyhow. Courage means that regardless of your fears, you continue. Fears are not a reason to stop. And that was monumental for me when I was buying ProServe Aviation, because there was so much to it that was terrifying. But I just reminded myself, it's not an excuse to stop. It's really important that as you grow, you maintain what you've already built. So we started GSE America in 2017, built another one in Wisconsin, and it would have been very easy for me to lose ground then. It is very easy. When you step away from one facility and you go focus on another one, you can imagine that your attention is cleanly over there. I'm not thinking about things that are going on in Florida when I'm in Wisconsin and vice versa. And if you're not careful, you're going to lose a lot of what you gained. It's important that you're durable and find ways to maintain everything that you've collected. You have got to accept the fact you have to be okay with going all the way back to Anchor One and starting over. There were times that we tried to open another facility and the timing just wasn't right. And unfortunately, you turn the lights off and you go back to the other one and you make sure that you didn't lose any of the ground. Remember durability. You go back to the other location and make sure that you don't slip too much. And then you just accept the fact it's not no, it's just not today. Those are just my 10 anchors. You don't have to use mine exactly, but you at least need a list, something that keeps you grounded. If you have anything to add, put it in the comments below. Some of your anchors, I'd be really curious to see them. If you want to see some of the books that shaped these concepts for me, check out the video on the screen.